From KUNC and the NPR network, this is In the NOCO. I'm Erin O'Toole, this is Clancy, and this is Hannah. Hi. Hi. Pets like my dogs, Clancy and Hannah, give us companionship and keep us healthier. They can give us a reason just to get out of bed in the morning. Unfortunately, some of us have had a harder time being able to keep our pets in recent years. The cost of housing is up. Inflation makes it harder to afford pet food and other supplies. Eviction moratoriums and financial assistance programs that help people during the pandemic have gone away. As a result, many shelters are at or near capacity. And the people who run those shelters are turning to creative ways to keep pets in their homes with their owners. Today, I'm joined by Mouse Jewel, a client intake specialist with the Longmont Humane Society, and Judy Calhoun, CEO at NOCO Humane, which serves Larimer and Weld counties. Mouse and Judy, welcome.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Mouse, we have heard about people surrendering their pets ever since pet adoptions surged during the pandemic. Could you talk about a family or a pet owner that you've worked with recently that illustrates what this moment is like?
I mean, the examples are endless at this point, but we've had clients come in who have had housing situations fall apart for financial reasons or for some personal reasons where they had to leave a dangerous situation and were having trouble finding footing with their pets. And we want to keep that family unit together. A particular client recently had a plan in place, but they needed a small window of time to get everything finalized so they could have a permanent housing solution with their pet. So we were able to, in that particular instance, take care of the animals, including a spay-neuter surgery that was necessary for about a 2-week period until they were able to come back, get their pets back into their home, and they didn't have to go through the ordeal of surrender.
And Judy Calhoun, let me ask you, does this sort of track with what you're seeing in Larimer and now Weld counties?
Absolutely, Erin. It is not unusual for us to have somebody come in to surrender their pet for moving and have them say they're moving this afternoon or tomorrow. Anywhere from 25 to 40% of our owner surrenders of cats and dogs are due to explicitly housing reasons. That's landlord won't allow, money, no home, those kinds of reasons.
Right. And we know that housing prices, the cost of housing is very high in Colorado. Certainly that's the case in Longmont and Northern Colorado. Judy, NOCO Humane has an interesting way of trying to help pet owners struggling with housing. You've actually worked with landlords to make more rental units what you call pet inclusive. Talk about what that looks like.
Yeah, so we've been trying to be active in discussions around housing. So be in the room, as you might say, when discussions, especially of affordable housing advocates, come up, and remind them that people come with pets. A lot of landlords will also say that their housing is pet friendly, but that means they'll allow one small dog with a several $100 pet deposit and a $50 or $75 pet rent. That's not really pet inclusive.
Yeah, this seems like a pretty big step, getting involved in housing policy and contracts. How have landlords treated you during this process?
Well, I've less discussion with landlords specifically and more with some of our housing advocates. And I will tell you that in those meetings, I'll get these very kind of confused looks as to why I'm at the chamber discussion on housing issues.
Well, let me bring you in, Mouse, because Longmont is one of several shelters we spoke with who have a pet food pantry, which also helps struggling pet owners. I'm wondering what you've noticed in terms of people using that service, and is it making a dent in the need?
Yes, we do have a pet pantry It's in an area that is staffed, although most items are kind of out of sight from the desk. So people who are there to gather what they need, no one is watching them or scrutinizing them or judging them.
Mm.
Food is distributed by staff just to make sure that hungry pets are getting fed equally. That is part of our role as of stewardship in our community, is making sure that um, people are taken care of, but especially, as far as our role, they're animals. We don't want anyone going hungry.
Well, and I think you bring up a good point that for people to feel comfortable and safe, they want to know that their pet is being taken care of too. So this does fill a really important role here. One thing also that surprised me to learn is how common behavioral issues were the reason people surrender a pet. Mouse, what are behavioral issues that people are struggling with, and what are some common fixes?
One that is hand in hand with housing is you mentioned pet deposits, pet rent. Sometimes animals like to scratch things. Sometimes animals chew on things. And that can be irritating to landlords and can affect people's housing situation. So we want to, as much we can, offer solutions. I had a client come in and say, my dog is chewing up the place. I've got to surrender them. And I said, well, have you tried crate training? And they said, no, and I can't afford a crate. I said, how about I give you one?
Mm.
And a handout of information on how to make the crate a positive environment and a positive experience for the pet. And right there, that is someone whose housing situation is no longer in jeopardy, and they're no longer in need to surrender their pet. Anything small like that, and asking people questions, without judgment.
Mouse, Jewel is with the Longmont Humane Society, and Judy Calhoun is CEO at NOCO Humane. Thank you so much to both of you for talking with me today.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And thank you for bringing light to this issue.
Here at In the NOCO, we love hearing from listeners, and I want to share a couple of comments that came in about our episode on foraging. Now, our guest, Orion, started Forage Colorado because he was having a tough time some years ago finding fellow foragers to connect with, so it was great to hear from a couple of folks in response to this. Lynn called in to say she found it wonderful to hear about foraging for wild edible plants, but she wishes we would have stayed away from sometimes referring to them as weeds. She said there's a connotation when one says weeds versus getting to know wild edible plants that are right in our own backyard. And we got a helpful reminder from the team at Fort Collins Natural Areas Department, noting that many natural spaces don't allow visitors to gather or remove plants, seeds, or other materials. This is to protect natural areas from being over-harvested and helps conserve food sources for wildlife. Not to mention, these areas may be treated with herbicides or pesticides. So, if you go out foraging anywhere that isn't your own property, make sure to check for signs and know the regulations before you visit. And if you have a comment, question, or show idea for us, email noco@kunc.org. And that's it for us today on In the NOCO. I'm Erin O'Toole. Thank you so much for listening. Have a great weekend.